Between Saquon Barkley, Paris Campbell, and now this, I have the feeling that Philadelphia's strategy this year for free agency was just to sign guys on rivals, sign other NFC East players. I kind of like it, not going to lie. Welcome, everybody, to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Will Grier, and I'm representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and their quarterback room because their QB room has made a ton of changes this offseason. Obviously, nothing changing with Jalen Hurts. He is still QB1. He's still the franchise guy, but everything else behind him has looked very, very different. They traded for Kenny Pickett from the Pittsburgh Steelers, taking a chance on the third-year man, the former first-round pick out of Pitt. Basically gave him a pick swap to do it. And now they have signed a veteran quarterback, signing the former West Virginia and Florida player, Will Grier. So Will Grier, he knows this offense. He played with the Cowboys from 2021 to 22, and that was when Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator in Dallas. Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, so you have someone in that knows the offense in Will Grier. Now, Grier has not done anything of note in the NFL. He's played a lot in the preseason, looked halfway decent every now and then in the preseason. He did flame out in Carolina when he got drafted in the third round. No appearance in the regular season since the 2019 season. But this makes things interesting with Philly. Obviously, Hurts is your 1, Pickett's your 2. What happens at the 3 spot? Because you've got Will Grier, and you also got Tanner McKee, the man he had drafted out of Stanford last year in the 6th round. Does this impact his roster status? Does this impact how the Eagles are going to construct their roster? Does Will Grier have a shot at making the roster? Well, here's the thing. Nick Sirianni has been the coach of the Eagles since the 2021 season. Every single season he's been with Philly, he's kept 3 quarterbacks on the roster. On top of that, the Eagles have ended their season with 3 quarterbacks on the roster every year since 2018. So I like to talk about precedent and history and how certain teams construct their roster, how Mike Tomlin always keeps 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and it seems like the Eagles always keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Last year, Jalen Hurts was the starter. They had Marcus Mariota as the 2 and Tanner McKee as the 3. In 2022, you had Jalen Hurts, you had Gardner Minshew as the backup, and Ian Book as your 3. 2021, you had Jalen Hurts, you had Gardner Minshew, and Reed Sinnett. 2020 was Carson Wentz. It was Jalen Hurts, who was a rookie back then, and Nate Sudfeld. 2019, Carson Wentz, Nate Sudfeld, and Josh McCown. And 2018, it was Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, and Nate Sudfeld. So the last 6 years, the Eagles have ended the season with 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, and I could absolutely see them doing that again because of precedent and because that's how Sirianni likes constructing his roster. We have a sample size of 3. It's not the largest sample size in the world, but all 3 years, they keep 3 quarterbacks. That tells you something. So what does that mean? Obviously, Hurts is making the roster. Pickett's making the roster. What does it mean? Grier versus McKee. Who's got the upper hand at the number 3 job? Well, obviously, Grier has the upper hand knowing the offense, playing with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator in Dallas. Here's the thing, though. You have more flexibility on the practice squad if you let go of McKee versus if you let go of Grier. If you let go of Grier, you have some limitations on how you can construct your practice squad. If you let go of McKee, you don't really have any limitations. You could bring it back on the practice squad. So Tanner McKee entering his 2nd season. Now, NFL rules say that you can have as many guys on the practice squad as you want, besides the limit that is imposed around the league. But there's no limitation on how many guys on the practice squad can be in their 2nd or their 1st season in the league. Tanner McKee is entering his 2nd season. So you can put him on the practice squad. You don't have to waste any roster spot that way. Having said that, Will Grier got drafted in 2019. He's entering his 6th season in the league. You're only allowed to have 6 players on your practice squad with more than 2 years of experience. So if you have Will Grier as your 3rd quarterback, because the Eagles always keep 3 quarterbacks, and you have Tanner McKee on the practice squad, you're good. If you have Tanner McKee as your QB3, you might want to sign a guy on the practice squad, and you're going to be severely limited because you will have to either go with Will Grier, go with a veteran, who would take up one of the 6 spots on the practice squad for guys that have more than 2 years of experience, or you have to go with a rookie who might not know the offense, who you don't really like, you don't really know a whole lot about, because you're making this move at the end of the waiver wire at the end of the preseason, and you won't really get to see a whole lot of reps with that guy. So you can have Will Grier as your third quarterback, and you can have Tanner McKee on the practice squad, and it doesn't change your roster strategy whatsoever. Now, I might be saying, what about Tanner McKee? What if he gets claimed? What if another team claims him off of waivers? Well, I'm not sure you have to worry about that necessarily. 24 players got claimed off of waivers last season when the final cuts were made in August to get to the 53-man roster. Of those 24, none of them were quarterbacks. Not a single player that was claimed was a quarterback, which is interesting because there were some quarterbacks that got cut last year as part of the cut down to 53 that I'm like, oh, they're going to get claimed. Oh, they're absolutely going to get claimed. And then they didn't get claimed. I thought Ben DiNucci had a shot at getting claimed. I thought he looked pretty solid in the preseason for the Denver Broncos. Nathan Rourke, the CFL quarterback who played in Jacksonville, he looked very, very good. I was shocked he didn't get claimed. Bailey Zappi, who started games back in 2022 for the Patriots, he got placed on waivers. He didn't get claimed by anyone. He just reverted back to the Patriots. So not a single quarterback got claimed last season. So based on that, you could probably easily put Tanner McKee on the practice squad. If Will Grier knows the offense, he plays well, you can have Hurts as your 1, Pickett as your 2, Grier as your 3, and you can keep Tanner McKee on the practice squad. And on top of that, you don't have to change how you structure the practice squad. Now, it does feel a bit weird to get Grier in some regards because McKee did look solid at times last preseason. You look at the stats last preseason, 453 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, did a very good job holding onto the ball. At times, he looked better than Marcus Mariota. He ran the offense better than Marcus Mariota during the preseason. There was even some talk around the league about whether or not McKee would be the backup behind Hurts, and he would be QB2 because he looked better than Marcus Mariota. And I'm not sure how much of that talk was in Philly's. I'm not sure how many people in Philadelphia were thinking that, but around the league and around fans, a lot of people were like, McKee looks a bit better than Mariota. On top of that, you had this quote from Nick Sirianni last preseason, which showed a lot of faith in Tanner McKee. As Sirianni said on his preseason, we drafted him because we liked him, and we liked the accuracy he showed on tape. We liked the decision-making he showed on tape, and he's continued to show that throughout practice and games. He's put 3 really good preseason games together, and we were so excited to work with him. We're really pleased with how he was this preseason. He felt really comfortable back there. You could definitely see that. So this move seems to contradict the fact that they're confident in Tanner McKee to some regard, because he's probably not making the roster at this point. It would take him outplaying Will Grier for him to make the roster, and even if he does, he'd be QB3 behind, obviously, Hurts and Pickett. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Tanner McKee, Will Grier are going to be fighting for that QB3 spot because the Eagles always keep 3 quarterbacks. And that's going to be one of the most interesting battles to watch this preseason. I'll be very excited to see how that plays out. Who wins that QB3 spot, whether it's the veteran in Will Grier or the second-year man, Tanner McKee. Grier gives you more flexibility in terms of how you construct the practice squad, but McKee might have more potential. Obviously, we know what Grier is to some extent entering his 6th year. Tanner McKee looked solid at times last preseason, and he's only entering his 2nd season. Very, very interesting to see what happens, but we will see when camp begins in July who has the upper hand on that QB3 battle. I'm sure Philly fans will be all over that. But what are your thoughts on this move to acquire Will Grier? Do you think it makes sense for the Eagles? Do you think it doesn't make sense for the Eagles? What are your thoughts on Will Grier as a quarterback? If you watched him in Dallas in the preseason, watched him in Florida, West Virginia, what are your thoughts? Who do you think has the upper hand at QB3, Tanner McKee or Will Grier? What do you think about the Eagles quarterback situation? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And that is going to do it for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, Jaguar9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Jaguar9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.